Hey, it's Stu, and I'm going to call this section Oops, I Did It Again. I had a pretty big haul last week, and as usual, I said, oh, I won't have that big of a haul this week. It'll be fine. But I ended up in several sort of different situations where there was hauling. So there's a couple of my, like, around the neighborhood, little free library books in here. And then there's a lot of Friends of the Library books. There were just selections that I'm not the only one. I just can't help myself. I see something, I'm like, this is here. I found it, like what? And some days I feel really discerning and I'm really proud of myself. Some days I set limits, like nothing that's not older than the last 5 years, something like this. Silly, because there's great books older than the last 5 years, but just to have limitations. And other times I'm just like, only books that I'm really familiar with. And other times I'm like, oh, I'll spend a really long time and something that is new to me and exciting to read. And yeah, all of that happened. So let's just go. This lovely little book is called So Lucky by Nicola Griffith. And sort of the central theme of this book is disability awareness, disability rights. The main character, I believe, the protagonist, has a diagnosis of MS, and this happens at the same day of the separation from her wife. What I like about that, as sort of a thematic concept, is like oftentimes we're not just dealing with single issues. We're dealing with lots of complex issues, and it's sort of like always a coming to know yourself. When you have to understand yourself as a single person, when you've been in a marriage, as someone with a disability that's going to progress, such as MS. And so, yeah, this one really spoke to me, and it's quite little. And so I think this goes in a particular basket of books that are just really endearing and that I want to read. Like, I have a basket of books of like, these are my go-to books if I just don't want a TBR. I just want something to read that I'm really, really looking forward to reading. I got this at I had a little bit of time before a meeting, and so I went into a library, and this particular library had that little like bookshelf sale. It was quite small. The books were $1 in it, and so that's where I got this. And this is The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Córdoba, and this is another fantasy. So if somebody claps back at me and says, yo, I thought you said you're not into fantasy, I'm still not into fantasy, but I want my Latina representation. I loved this foiled hummingbird, and I have a degree of excitement to get to this book and to try to just, as I'm currently inside of a romance that I'm really enjoying, I think it's fair to always make space, especially when books are free or very, very cheap, to try books, that to just keep trying, to try different kinds of stories and told in different kinds of ways. They don't have to be master craftswomen, craftspeople. They can just provide me an interesting story, and that's good enough for me. That doesn't mean I want to read a whole series or more of the author, but that's why I decided for $1 that book was going to be on my shelves. Land of Love and Drowning by Tiffany Yankee. This book I got from the Friends of the Library. The Friends of the Library are $3 for paperbacks, which I think is also just a really good deal. And because I get free books, because of my membership, I like to also try to find a few to get. I always succeed in finding more than a few. So let's be honest. This is about the Virgin Islands. And it has this lovely map in the beginning. And the setting of this book is Virgin Islands, early 1900s. I don't think I have any other book where the setting is the Virgin Islands of any other time. So for that reason alone, I wanted to hold this book so that I could have that setting as a representation. And this book has some props by some authors that I can trust as well. So I think that not only is it representing a setting, but it's going to be it's going to be well written. And oh boy, I don't know. Maybe this summer I'll do some island reads. As just maybe a week. I'll do a week of island reads or something, because I am kind of amassing some island reads, and I'm trying to imagine how and when I'll get to them, because this is kind of like one of these smaller paperbacks that ends up in sort of like stacks. Here I have a stack right here of paperbacks, and I have to be very careful not to just sort of like forget about it or neglect it. This one doesn't have any digital version that I can access, and so I had to really think about wanting to get it. As I was just reading and finishing Yellow Wife, I thought that that was this would be an interesting sort of pair read. Unfortunately, the sunshine is gone and it's raining, so I'm not going to get any outdoor time to read it during to read a sort of like the follow-up read or the pairing with Yellow Wife. But I will put it in sort of, I have a pile of Take to San Diego When You Go Next, and I do have a San Diego trip plan where I can read on the lanai in perfect sunlight, and then if I don't get to it, I'll donate this to their friends there, their friends of the library there, or put it in one of those little free libraries. So this is Passing by Patricia Jones, and this is about colorism, and I think it was published in 1999. So it's a bit of an older book, which I also, want to make sure that if I can, I'm reading across the decades available to me. Oh, absolutely. I have almost all of her modern publications. I'm amassing a collection of Louise Erdrich, and although I've only read a few of her books, I loved La Rose so much, and a few recently, and then some in the past as well. I need to correct myself. Anyway, she's the one author that I want to have a collection of, and I want to keep it. I don't think that I'll unhaul. I have unhauled every Louise Erdrich that I read so far, but since then I found that I wasn't reading her, so I wanted to make a commitment to myself, because I think I was avoiding reading her books even when they were kind of coming up and in times when I would be reading her books, because I didn't want to unhaul them. And so I am trying to mitigate that feeling in myself, because it's arbitrary and made up for myself anyway, by just saying, no, you can keep your Louise Erdrich books. Like, all of this can go into little free libraries or friends of the library, even unread, if I have to do a big move, or if I, do some years of international travel. But you can, there can be a small box of books you keep, and Louise Erdrich would be the one. She is maybe my favorite American author. And this is Future Home of the Living God. I think this is 2017, and this is a speculative dystopian, a bit small, and has me curious. Has me curious for sure. When I first walked into the Friends of the Library book sale, and I debated going, I thought I have enough books and I could just miss out. I need to sort of manage my fear of missing out. But I had some books to put on there. The Book Was Better display. And I walked in, and a lovely volunteer was like, we just got this box of fiction, and I think it's your jam, and here it is. Look at it before we shelf it if you'd like. And absolutely, they have my number. These next 4 books were just taken really without that much speculation. Like, yep, absolutely. These are the books. I can't believe they're here. So this is Kathryn Chidgey. This is a Europa Editions, which almost is a just go-to for me. I'm a bit of a Europa Editions collector. However, I do unhaul them as well. And Kathryn Chidgey is a New Zealand author. We don't get that many of them, at least through thrifting, etc., like I do in the US. And so the Axeman's Carnival and this particular author I'm familiar with, and I'm really excited to have found this. Like, this literally is the bird's eye view. It's a story told through a bird, and it's a bird's understanding of humanity and humans through a friendship. Love that. Love that as a concept. And super excited for this book. Super excited for this book. Likewise, I Gave You Eyes and You Look Towards Darkness. I think I have a vague familiarity about this book. This is Irene Solà, and this is translated from the Catalan. And so the translator is too small on the front. Let me page in so I can tell you. It's Mara Fay Lehorn. And this Grey Wolf Press is very new. It's 2025. For this book was published in 2023. This is like horror fantasy, horror fairy tale, like a blending. And what a fantastic cover and title. It's also not a large book, and it's going to sit in that same basket of, when I just need a book that I'm really excited to read, that won't fall into the kinds of reading challenges I'm doing. I'm gonna pick up this. Texas the Great Theft by Carmen Boullosa. This is one that I hope one day, and maybe a trip to Mexico, which might happen this coming year, where I'll pick up this in the Spanish, because this is a translation from the Spanish. Carmen Boullosa is a Mexican author. This translation is done by Samantha Schnee. And this is its 10th anniversary edition. Doesn't exist at my library. Totally surprised. I might request. I'm wondering why this book doesn't exist. It's not that old. And I think Carmen Boullosa is an author, worth existing in libraries. In any case, this is that sort of, I'm going to say historical fiction, with lots of characters. Kind of a hallmark for me of Latin American literature is that there's lots of characters that are very rich, that are interacting in these historical contexts. And this is the one of, shall I say, the annexation of Texas by the U.S., the loss of Texas by Mexico. I think this is actually focusing on this. In fact, it says, loosely based on the little-known 1859 Mexican invasion of the United States in Texas. The Great Theft is a richly imagined evocation of the volatile Tex-Mex borderland. Cormac McCarthy writes in that space. It's a great space to write in. I'm really excited for this book. I can handle this physical only edition, but I'd have to be in natural light, as I often say. That was part of that pile from that one, waiting for me. Mame, I believe how this is pronounced, by Jessica George. This book was published in 2023. I just finished Yase's Homegoing. So, oops, sorry. That foot was falling asleep, so I needed to kind of move it as I'm sitting on the floor. Oh my God, total sidebar. I think we all know that people, you should sit on the floor and get up off the floor in your middle ages, as I am, to make sure that your body can do that. So that's what I do when I make these videos. And other times I try to sit on the floor quite a bit. But as this video goes on and the prep for it goes on, my foot was falling to sleep. You'll see it happen quite a bit in videos. I wiggle around a little because something might be falling asleep a little. Anyway, Mame by Jessica George. Guianan English author. There's some look like in Yase's of going home or going back to Ghana, and I think that's what's happening in this book as well. So I think this is a contemporary fiction where our main character is experiencing her life in the UK and then returning to Ghana and making sense of belonging, identity, family, etc. Look at this cover. This could be perhaps my favorite cover, and I decided, I didn't actually even look inside of what the book was. I took this, once I saw that the Axemen's Carnival was there, I was like, yeah, I'm taking that. This pile of books is coming with me. Yeah, that's me being really discerning. And I'm going to have this book. I'm going to find out about this book, and this is going to be a display book. On the other side of this wall is my living area, where I have a few books on display. And yeah, this is going to bump one of the other ones. They're either going to get put in here or put on my TBR. The last book from that pile was this, also fantastic, needs to be a display book. This is My Cat Yugoslavia by Pajtin Statovci. This is translated from the Finnish by, and I have to page in because it doesn't say, David Haxon. This book starts in the 80s in Kosovo. Then where a young Muslim woman gets married. I think the marriage is a bit fraught. The wars happen. They're exiled or immigrate to, refuged to Finland. She has a son who is growing up in Finland and experiencing xenophobia and not fitting in, feeling outsiderism, because of maybe his religion, maybe his ethnic background, maybe his refugeeism. I'm not quite sure, but I'm anticipating he's not quite fitting in, and he's queer. So lives a pretty isolated life, him and his boa constrictor in an apartment. And then he goes out one night to a bar and meets a talking cat. And this talking cat, it kind of like in a Master and Margarita-esque way, but I'm projecting because I have not read this book. I'm just summarizing the synopsis without looking at it, so I could be getting something wrong. I was curious, and then I showed a picture of this to a lot of friends. They're like, "What's it about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I wanted to." For all of the reasons, I don't have a Finnish translated book on my shelves for that reason alone. Like, but this talking cat sort of like compels him to return to Kosovo. So we have this theme in a lot of books that I've been reading lately, like this going back to the beginning or to the ancestral homeland, and what that means as far as understanding yourself and your roots, and or making sense of where you are now through understanding the past. And that's happening in this book. Just the way that the synopsis is written, it was really compelling and unique kind of prose. I don't know who wrote the synopsis, probably nothing like the author, because I didn't read. It has these nice deckled edges too, sidebar. I didn't read any of the book, but anyway, here it is. Super excited for this book. It's going to be a display book. Not in that stack, but at the Friends of the Library on the same day. Almost rounding off. It's not all of his books, but Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys. I'm so excited to find this. This is his Pulitzer, one of the two. I also, San Diego, I found The Underground Railroad, albeit not an edition, that I'm super pleased with. The content is the same, and I'll be reading it mostly digitally anyway. Anyway, I found this. I almost wanted to bump. I'm reading Harlem Shuffle. No, Crook Manifesto. I've already read Harlem Shuffle because I'm doing series for Black History Month, and I almost wanted to bump that for this Colson Whitehead. Alas, I won't. There is a nice shelf where, in the front too, where I have my Colson Whiteheads and a few other really beautiful books, mostly with the colors of yellow. This is going on it so I can keep my Colson Whiteheads together, because I have several, even though I've unhauled Harlem Shuffle, I gave it to a friend. And if the friend liked that, I'm going to give him Crook Manifesto as well. Rambling. That's where this is going. Super excited to find this book in a little free library that was like devoid of books. And I was taking books there the other day and then decided, I don't know, did somebody ravage this? Is it got some water damage? And the steward, so sometimes when they're completely empty, I wonder what's going on. And I don't just want to like fill up books if it's something going on. So I committed myself to go back and just check on it. Walking back by, it had books, and it had several books by Nicola Barker, the one which she won the Costa Prize for, but I chose the Yips. It's a bit of a brick book, but I chose this because I'm not very familiar with Nicola Barker, but she writes about the East Side of London, contemporary fiction, and I'm pretty familiar with the East Side of London. I'm pretty endeared to the East Side of London, so I wanted this book, and I wanted this book. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to get a summer trip, but if it's anywhere on that side of the world, my entry point is always London, where I go see lifelong friends, and in which case I think this brick of book will come with me to just kind of prepare me for the setting of London. Oh yeah, I was opening it up to see its publication date. Sorry, I was kind of getting a lot sidetracked today. It's, I guess, how I am, but certainly how I am today. Why is there no publication date? One wonders. I feel like it should have been right there on that page, and it wasn't. Okay, I don't know. Maybe this is an ARC, and that's why it's not providing its publication data in the front. Nope, it's because it's in the back. All right, where I didn't anticipate it. Lots of sidebars there. 2012. So 10, almost 15 years old. Well, we can do the math, but so not incredibly contemporary, but still somewhat modern. My name is not Viola. I got this from a different Friends of the Library where I didn't intend to get any books, and alas, I did. I struggled because this is maybe a very, very, very small press, and so I couldn't, there wasn't a digital version, and this font is quite small, but this is a story of Japanese internment. There's a lot of the West Coast as a setting, which I'm very familiar with, and I just felt it's not a story that I've read before. When the Emperor Was Divine was a fantastic novella also covering this, but I think this is a bit more of a character study of that dark patch of American history, and I wanted to have this story, so I think this is going to go in the, when I go to San Diego and have Natural Reading Light, let me see if I can get to, so I have 2 books in this pile that will fulfill that, and you know, for $3, if I get to it, great. If not, I will give it to their Friends of the Library or Little Free Library, and that's kind of the plan for this book. I Went to See My Father by Kyung Suk Shin. Translated from the Korean by Anton Her. When I showed this to a friend, they let me know that they had read Please Look After Mom. There had been some controversy around that as far as like maybe some plagiarism, and they cued me in with that. I didn't know, and it didn't anything about it until they did, and it didn't interfere with my desire to read this book. This book has a theme about a woman, maybe middle-aged, so relatable already, who recently lost, I think, her husband. Or there's a tragedy, and she and her child go back to the hometown to live with the father. And she's understanding and coming to know the father through a new lens, through a middle-aged lens, through a post, like I've been through some hardships in life lens. And that means, what must have you gone through, father? And unveiling perhaps family secrets, maybe looking at to the father should be about the age of the Korean, maybe absolutely impacted directly by the Korean War. And I love that as a theme. Like that's the kind of book that I really want to look. It works for me a lot. And yeah, I was excited about the theme. And when I was explaining why I got this book to my friend, they as well were like, yeah, that's a theme I'm also very interested in. Okay, Quarter Life by Devika. I think it's Rege, but it could be Rege. And I apologize for not knowing. This is an Indian author and an Indian book. And this has to do with sort of like change, with political and social change. Yeah. Maybe period, but certainly in this region of the setting of in India. I'm trying to, yeah, it's like its blurb says, Quarter Life is a groundbreaking portrait of a nation in the cups of a new age. So there's a new party. There's definitely interaction of the main characters between India and the US. What a fantastic cover. Definitely blurbs by folks who I know and trust. And yeah, I have a lot of anticipation for this book as well. And I mean, why I'm kind of slowing down when talking about it, I'm trying to imagine when will I read? That's the thing about having, I'm going to even use the judgmental word, too many books. You start to get books and you feel really excited about reading them, like really like that anticipation and joy as part of like the book collecting, which is different than book reading, I understand, fills your mind. But as an avid reader as well, I have a lot of joy and anticipation. Like, I want to read this book. And then I think I'm thinking about when will I read this book, or how will I remember that I have this book as an option? Where will I put this book in my organization system and in my mind? And so that's what kind of slowed me down, because I still haven't made up my mind. It was a display book at the Friends of the Library, and it deserves to be a display book. So there's that. Last book in this pile. And yeah, it's a big pile. That's why I said, oops, I did it again. It's something I'm also really excited to read. It says See Loss and See Also Love by Yukiko Tominaga. And this, I believe, is told in like little vignettes of someone sort of dealing with different scenarios in their life. And I think the premise is there's a loss of a husband again, and there's a small son again. So we have that very much in common with when I went to see my father. And I think this protagonist decides not to go back to Japan, to stay in San Francisco alone. And so there's going to be moments that I can really relate with, to stay far from family in an urban area, different from where you grew up, to raise a child alone. And that in itself will present so many situations. I think the child also is from parents from different ethnic and religious backgrounds, which is going to present also a lot of, if I predict that this book is going to be quite a bit introspective, and quite personal to the experience of this protagonist. And yeah, I was super compelled again by the cover. Maybe it'll bump one of my other, maybe that one. Yeah, I think this will be the new display book right there. And those are definitely some short stories I'd love to get to this month. But if not, definitely love to get to. And yeah, so to remind me that this is a book I think that will speak to me a lot. I think both of these books I got because I thought that they would literally speak to me. Like, I could relate to it. And I love reading books where I explore lives completely unlike my own. And then sometimes we need literature to feel at home, feel heard, feel known, give us ways to frameworks with which we can also explore our own life experiences, which are similar to the creations of these authors. So those are those two books. And that's the end of this Oops, I Did It Again haul.